For our 20th episode, we're switching things up and revisiting one of the most infamous scandals in NFL history, Bountygate. The league accused the New Orleans Saints of operating a system that rewarded defensive players for big hits, knockouts, and injuries, and responded with some of the harshest punishments it had ever handed down. But once the appeals began and the evidence came under scrutiny, the story became far less straightforward. Welcome to the Trade Rewind. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're switching it up a little bit. As promised, this is our 20th episode, and we're gonna be talking about Bountygate, which is famous, you know, one of the I think at the time was the biggest punishment the NFL had levied on a franchise, an individual, anyone really. It was probably the biggest punishment, and we're gonna dive into it. It's a fascinating event that took
Scandal.
yeah, scandal that took place, and it's really interesting all the moving pieces and how little clarity there actually is when you break down these things.
Yeah, I mean, like, everyone kinda knows, like, "Oh, Bountygate happened," but I don't feel like we even really know, Like, I think the casual fan knows it happened, but I don't know if they really know, like, the details and what really went down.
Yeah, I honestly, I thought I knew anything about it, and then once I started looking into it and, really digging into it, I realized I know nothing, and nothing is there's really very few things that are clear throughout it, and it whatever, the whole thing's fascinating. So, I wanna start with the punishment and kinda work our way back from there. So, this was we're gonna get into all the context, but basic context is this is the New Orleans Saints organization. This is 3 years after they won the Super Bowl. The NFL announced that it would be imposing the harshest punishment in league history for a bounty program with the intent of intentionally injuring opposing players between 2009 and 2011. So, we'll get into exactly what a bounty program is and all that, but let's start with the punishment. $500,000 fine against the organization. Forfeited 2 second-round draft picks. Sean Payton was suspended without pay for all of 2012. He was the head coach at the time. The general manager, Mickey Loomis, was suspended without pay for the first half of 2012. The defensive coordinator, Gregg Williams, was suspended indefinitely. Assistant head coach Joe Vitt was suspended for 6 games. Jonathan Vilma, who was a player, was suspended for the entire 2012 season. Anthony Hargrove was suspended for 8 games, another player. Will Smith was suspended for 4 games, also a player. And the last player suspension was Scott Fujita, who was suspended for 3 games. So the funny thing is, this is what the NFL announced as the punishments. This isn't actually what stood as the punishments. We're going to get into what stands, but I guess just what's your initial reaction to how, massive these punishments are?
Yeah, I mean, the first thought is like, this isn't the NBA, like, second round picks are very important, and to lose 2 second rounders, that's already a big punishment. I don't really care about the money, like, it's an NFL team, they don't worry about that. And then, I mean, the amount of games is pretty crazy. Like, you're talking about Jonathan Vilma and, like, serious contributing players getting suspended, as well as, right, 2 coaches, one of them indefinitely. My initial thought also is, like, the GM, like, does he really know what's going on? Like, do they really know? Like, I know the coaches know, but, like, does the GM really know what's going on in the locker room? That was just also a little bit of my initial thought that I didn't know that the GM had gotten in trouble as well.
Yeah, we'll get into everything. The irony is that none of the players' suspensions hold up. They all end up on appeal, which is shocking because suspensions usually nothing happens when you appeal suspensions. But for whatever, I mean, we'll get into the reasons, but these players' suspensions don't hold up at all. But it's just like you're saying, massive. You're
Well,
taking out the
is that
entire
is
team.
that more of, an NBA an NFLPA thing, like the Players Association just has a lot of power?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and no. We're gonna dive into it. So, let's start with I want to get into the main player. So obviously, the first player here is the Saints as an organization. I know I pose this question to you sometimes on these episodes. When you think of the Saints now, what do you think of as an organization?
Um, I think of Drew Brees. I think they're a pretty first class organization.
Right. So for context, the Saints organization started, their franchise began in 1967. Between 1967 and 2005, they made the playoffs 5 times. They lost in the wild card round 4 of those times, and they lost in the divisional round once. So from their inception, I guess it's what, like 38 years, 5 playoff appearances, never made it out of the second round, and only made it to the second round once.
Wow.
So, not a great organization. In 2006, this is all the things you're talking about. Sean Payton and Drew Brees come. This is right after Hurricane Katrina devastates Louisiana, New Orleans, and I think the city really rallies around them, and they were the two perfect people. So Sean Payton, head coach, Drew Brees, quarterback. Immediately, their first season, they lose to the Bears in the NFC Championship game. That's the Bears Colts Super Bowl. Peyton
Yeah.
Manning's first. They missed the playoffs the next 2 years in 2007 and 2008. In 2009, they win the Super Bowl. So they go from being a terrible franchise, terrible organization, to basically Sean Payton turns it around in 4 seasons. And in his fourth season, wins the Super Bowl. And in 2010, the NFL starts investigating them for Bountygate, and they lose in the wild card in 2010. They lose in the divisional round in 2011. The original investigation goes nowhere. And then in 2011, at the end, they reopen the investigation. In 2012, they conclude the investigation and announce the findings and punishments. That's the Saints. Let's get into the coach.
And what years do they allege that Bountygate was going on? During the Super Bowl winning year?
Correct. Between 2009 and 2011. So starting in that Super Bowl season and continuing for the next 3 years, basically until the NFL had their legitimate investigation that actually found things. And they didn't stop it until that point. That's what's crazy. The NFL started investigating them after the 2009 season, and they didn't care. Like they kept it going for 2 more years after that.
Did they know the NFL was investigating them at the time?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I think the NFL tells you.
I'm wondering, like, where's Drew Brees in all this? Like, did he know what was going on?
I don't know. We'll get into the individuals a little bit. I don't know. Like it would be. I wonder. I'm not so familiar with an NFL. Like what's going on behind closed doors in an NFL organization. Do the offense and defense really talk to each other? I don't know.
Right, because like in meetings, like right in the NFL, like the defense meets with the defense, and the linebackers meet with the linebackers, and corners and corners. So it's not like you're like all together. So it could be that the offense has no clue, like that what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Drew Brees had no idea. And even like Sean Payton knew about it, but it seems like like he wasn't really he wasn't a
Right. I
part
mean,
of it even, and he's the
it's
head
known
coach.
Gregg Williams is the mastermind, right?
Yeah, yeah. So let's I did a little bit of research into Sean Payton because we rarely have chances to research coaches on this show, so I thought it'd be a little bit interesting. So he's obviously going to be one of the main players here. He's the head coach, and had, I think he ends up having the harshest punishment that stands, really, getting suspended for an entire season. So Sean Payton, born in California, but grew up in Newton Square, Pennsylvania for lower and middle school. Just like one of these guys who loves football. Apparently, he wanted to watch Monday Night Football so bad till the end that his parents made a deal with him that he could, but he had to finish all his homework, take a nap, then he could wake up at 8:30, watch the game, and then go back to sleep after the game. So the guy loves ball. He went to high school in Illinois. He was a bench warmer until his senior season, and then he starts as a senior and he gets a scholarship to Eastern Illinois to play quarterback. He goes 11-2 his senior year, had 75 career touchdowns, so a solid college career. And guess who broke that 75 career touchdown mark?
Drew Brees.
No. You got to think like LeBerry, like, I don't know, Eastern Illinois is even D1, like low end D1.
Oh, someone at Eastern Illinois broke it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, is it like a more modern player? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, you definitely know who it is.
Taysom Hill.
No, no, not that modern, like a 2000s guy.
Eastern Illinois. I don't know.
It was Tony Romo.
Oh, wow.
So, fun fact, Tony Romo and Sean Payton, I don't know if they're still 1-2. I assume Tony Romo is still number 1. Anyways, he tries going pro. He gets to try out for the Chiefs. He has a couple games in Arena Football League. He's not good. He's not good enough to cut it at the pro level. Then the NFL goes on strike, and he plays for the Spare Bears, which which were one of the, like when they were on strike and they were still trying to have games, we experienced in our lifetime backup refs. They had backup players. Like if players who weren't willing to cross the picket line didn't play, and they were just like teams found these random dudes. So he was one of them. He wasn't great. His career statistics are a 34.8 completion percentage for 79 yards, 3.4 yards per attempt, and 1 interception.
And this was him playing against replacement players.
Yeah. Yeah. So not great. He goes to England. He realizes and not I think it was to clear his head, whatever. Comes back to America. He realizes that he wants to coach, does all these interviews. He ends up getting a graduate assistant job at San Diego State. He sleeps there because he had no money and he was a grinder. After 2 years, he's able to get a full-time assistant job. And from there, it's just, you see one of these classic trajectories where he works his way up through college, running backs coach, quarterbacks coach, gets to the NFL, becomes a quarterbacks coach for the Eagles, then a quarterbacks coach for the Giants, then the offensive coordinator for the Giants, and then assistant head coach for the Cowboys, which he then turns into his Saints head coach job. That's Sean Payton. This is one very interesting quote from his book that I just think it's interesting how it informs. I don't know if it's specific to him. I don't know if this is just generally how people feel in, football locker rooms in the football world, but curious to hear your thoughts on this. So this is his first career interview. He's interviewing with the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. And they ask him this question. If one of the coaches on our staff ever asked you to do something, you thought maybe it wasn't right or maybe it wasn't ethical, what would your reaction be? And this is him talking or in his head. A thought went racing through my head. Man, these Vegas guys are cheating. He's asking me if I'd be loyal if they hired me. Coach, I said, I'll be honest with you. If I'm working for your staff, I'm going to do whatever your staff asks. So, regardless of what they ask for me, I'm going to do it with blinders and not really hesitate.
Wow, that is crazy.
It's a crazy quote. The irony is that the coach turns around and he doesn't get the job because of it. I don't know
Yeah,
because of
because
that specifically.
that's a terrible answer. We're looking for you think they're looking for guys with good morals and ethics, not like some guy who's like willing to cover things up.
Yeah. So two things are interesting to me about it though. One is that he put it in his book. So clearly he didn't think it's so bad. And two, I mean, this is I think before Bountygate was a thing, but like this is right after the 2009 season. The second one is if he's even willing to say it, does that show a little something about how, these locker rooms work and how these coaching circles function? Or am I reading too much into it? I mean, obviously, I have no idea, but is it just this is one guy and that these are his feelings on it, or is it greater than that?
I mean, I don't know about that, but it definitely, I mean, I guess college at the time, like, there was a lot of, like, pre-NIL, there's a lot of people, trying to pay kids to come to their colleges, so it could be like he was thinking about that,
Yeah.
but the mindset, even the way he thought about that question, like, "Oh my gosh," like, he's asking me if I'm willing to cheat, and then he doubles down and says, "Yes," that is wild that he would even put that out there, like, why would you tell on yourself like that? Like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I forgot, like, there's he talks about more afterwards, like, whatever, but he never really like, if I remember correctly from the book, back he didn't, like, really back away from it, like, he was kinda like, "Yeah, whatever, I didn't get the job because of it, but taught me to, like, stick to your guns." Like, it was a weird lesson that he had said he learned from it.
Well, this guy, I mean, the way he thinks, he might have thought like he said the right answer and just didn't get the job for a different reason.
No, no, because like, I think the coach immediately was like, "Oh, I thought you would I was hoping you'd come to me and, like, hash it out and, like, whatever." And he was like he tried backtracking, but it was the damage was done. Like, this wasn't this wasn't like, he knew that he answered incorrectly.
Wow. I mean, a learning experience, but that shows a little bit of his character, like who he is. Like
Yeah, it's very
that would,
interesting.
that would not be my gut thought and answer in an interview.
No, no. Although I don't know, that's the thing, like, if cheating is running rampant in college football at the time, then maybe that is what the coach is looking for. Like, maybe
Well,
the
if they asked me like, "Hey, are you a team player? Like, are you gonna have our guys back?" That maybe like is different than being like, "Well, if you see something going on, like I don't know, that's a pretty crazy answer to me."
Yeah. Listen, I'm with you. I'm curious if it shows us anything about what's going on. Whatever. Let's continue to we're close. The last guy I want to talk about is Gregg Williams, very briefly. He was the defensive coordinator and really, like you said before, the mastermind behind this Bountygate, this scheme. And he was just in his NFL career, he was a special teams and linebackers coach for the Oilers. Then he becomes their defensive coordinator. He's with the Oilers for 10 years. He's able to get a head coaching job with the Bills from 2001 to 2003. Not great. They go 3-13, 8-8, and then 6-10. His contract is not renewed. Defensive coordinator for the Redskins for the next 4 seasons, and the Jaguars after that. In 2009, Sean Payton wants him so bad that, and I think the quote was that Gregg Williams said Sean Payton wanted him to bring nasty to their defense, which only sounds bad knowing what we know. Apparently, Sean Payton took a $250,000 pay cut so that the Saints could hire him.
Wow.
So he wanted him bad.
Well,
Um,
a lot of these, quotes when you look back, when knowing what happened, sound terrible.
Really bad, really bad. Yeah. So for context on what a bounty is exactly, it's basically
Can I tell you what I think it was, and then you
yeah,
could
yeah, go for it.
like my recollection of Bountygate, and I don't know much, but my recollection was that guys on the defense were getting bonuses and money for big hits slash hurting people. And in certain games, they would put bounties on like the opposing team's quarterback or running back. And if you light him up and take him out, you'll get a bonus.
Perfect. Couldn't have explained it better. That's exactly what when people think bounty gate, that's what they're thinking. When you say a bounty in the NFL, that's what you're talking about. The objective to intentionally injure another player, knock them out of the game, and to be compensated for that by the team, players, whatever. And that's an important distinction because when people say, like, oh, well, there's always been bounties before then, it's not exactly true. It seems like what there's been a lot of is pay for performance culture, which is less, oh, you injured this guy, so here's here's $10,000, but more apparently, the Eagles say that they used to have a performance pool for interceptions, fumble recoveries, and touchdowns, their defense. So, it was more like gambling with the guys, like you're in the locker room and it wasn't so like it wasn't so put together. It wasn't like a whole scheme. It was like you probably, you know, you're broing out and you're like, listen, if you get a pick today, I'll give you 10K.
And and these are, at least those are our stats. It's not, directly focused on the other team, it's focused on your team. Once you're, taking that focus to the other team, like take this guy out or hurt this guy, like that's definitely a different thing.
Of course, right. And one thing though is worth noting from the NFL's perspective, it's all bad. Obviously, bounties are worse, but even the pay for play is bad because that's compensation for your job as a football player that's outside of the salary cap and all that stuff. So the NFL doesn't like any of it because they don't want you to be getting bonuses for things that aren't in your contract.
Right. Like now in your contract, you can have like you get a bonus if you get 8 sacks, or if you get 3 picks, you get a bonus. So they like it could be put in the contract, but I get that there because they're trying to because that's a way to circumvent the salary cap.
Exactly. So that was not really what was happening. No, but there is it's just important context to have that within NFL franchises, there was a lot of, you know, but it was never from the coaches level. It was players. It was players saying, "Okay, like we put together a pot, and if you mess up, you maybe put money in, and if you get an interception, you get money out." It was nothing nothing crazy. Okay, let's get into the timeline now of what exactly went down with the Saints. So in 2009, Gregg Williams joins the Saints as a defensive coordinator, and he became aware before the season that the Saints players, they were doing some of this. They had these informal pools of money. And he decides, what's a good way to bring nasty to my defense? You know what? Screw it. I'll take control of it. I'll be in charge of these pay for performance pools. That this is a strictly defensive thing. And they got basically Gregg Williams ends up testifying to the NFL. And so a lot of that's where most of the information comes from is his testimony. So everything I say is alleged and take everything with a grain of salt because who knows what Gregg Williams' motivations were in each situation. But he says that the purpose of this bounty was to encourage competition, motivation, big plays, and aggression. So, a little something, a little bonus to help the defense show up. He admits that the pool took place in 2009, 2010, and 2011. And he says that the players funded the pool through you'd owe money if you messed up. If you had a penalty, if you had a missed opportunity, bad effort, mental error, you might have to pay into the pot. And then you'd get money out of the pot for sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, defensive touchdowns, big hits. And then at some point, card offs and knockouts was added. And Gregg Williams says this was at the request of players.
And can I guess, was it Jonathan Vilma?
So, I mean, Jonathan Vilma is he is blamed for a lot of things, and we'll talk about him. Knockouts is really like the meat and potatoes of what's wrong with this.
Right, because it doesn't even sound that bad until you bring out like, oh, yeah, and then they added carts and knockouts. Like, okay.
Right. Exactly. And he blames that on the players. Again, this is all alleged, and who knows? So,
I don't care what if like he's an adult, like he's the coach, like whether or not it was the player's idea, which he could be just throwing them under the bus. Regardless, he needs to be smarter than that. Like, who cares whose idea it was?
100%. And I mean, this is what's really interesting though. No one has ever admitted, including Gregg Williams, that they were trying to do anything illegal. Like the card offs and knockouts, he says, yeah, that was within the pool, but only on legal hits. Like, was our goal to knock them out of the game? Yeah, but only on a legal hit. We were never intentionally trying to injure someone through an illegal action, allegedly. I mean, we'll get into the exact games that kind of open this up and make the why the NFL was so alarmed by this, but let's uh let's get into that.
Yeah, I
So
mean, even though like that, like, oh, we weren't trying to like hurt players. Like once you're paying people to knock people out, like, guys are gonna hit harder or they're gonna act a little different, you know?
yeah, and to be honest, I don't buy it. Like, based on the amount of penalties and fines that they were racking up, like, to me, they were trying to just injure people, and that was part of it. And you know, do I think they were really trying to stay within the rules? No, I think they were. Do I think they necessarily had malicious intent? I don't know exactly. Like, I think they were just trying to be an ultra aggressive defense, but it just you cross the line, like
Yeah, absolutely.
it's tough because that is, like we were Joe Montana on the last football episode we were talking about. He got the crap beaten out of him for years, but it was generally in a legal way. So we don't fault the teams for it. And that is a brand of defense to smash mouth. And are you trying to injure people? No, but like, yeah, you're trying to like beat the crap out of someone over the course of the game.
Right. But even if you're doing legal hits, like if your goal is to knock the guy out and hurt him, like that's different than I'm trying to light a guy up, and just, set the tone. What
Right.
like your intention matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is where all the accusations are really, this is like where they're coming from. And it's their Super Bowl run, which is also a little bit of a bad look. So it's a 2009 season, but January of 2010 in the playoffs, I believe this was the divisional round, and they're playing against the Cardinals and Kurt Warner. And Kurt Warner was knocked out of the game. And the NFL says that there were Saints slides, like as part of a slideshow, that framed his injury in graphic terms. They don't say exactly what it said. And apparently, it said something about destroying quarterbacks and leaving teams without a field general. But Kurt Warner himself says that the hit that knocked him out was legal and had nothing to do with his retirement. So again, there's some nuance here. Like, very hard to know exactly what happened. Then in the NFC Championship game against Brett Favre, do you remember this game? Just Brett Favre on the Vikings
Is
getting,
this is this where it ends with that cross-field interception?
it must be, right?
He throws like across his body a pick when they were like at the 50. They could have won the game, and he throws a really silly Brett Favre style pick to end. Yeah, I remember that game.
So he just Brett Favre in that game. I mean, I remember just always on the Vikings is like you were always worried if he was gonna stand up, Like the guy was like 40 years old, just getting destroyed play after play after play. So this is a big part of the scandal because Gregg Williams swore to the NFL that the night before the NFC Championship game, Jonathan Vilma addressed the defensive players and coaches and pledged $10,000 to any player who knocked Favre out of the game.
Wow.
But Favre wasn't knocked out, so presumably no money was paid. Now, Vilma says he didn't do it, and other coaches and players say that he did, but some players say that he didn't. And there's no evidence that $10,000 that like he was holding up $10,000 and was actually planning on paying it. And there's no evidence that money was actually given to anyone. The league did fine the Saints $30,000 for 4 illegal hits in that game at the time, and several of them were directed at Favre, but no Saints players were suspended for any on-field conduct. Um, the NFL evidence also showed a document saying that the Saints pledged $35,000 to knock Favre out, including Vilma's $10,000. And apparently, there's a clip of Hargrove where they think Favre might have broken his leg, and Hargrove apparently told Bobby McCraig, "Give me my money." Although I was watching something of Hargrove saying that it wasn't actually him who said that, and it was a video from behind the bench, and it wasn't actually his voice. He wasn't the one who was saying it, or those weren't the words being said. I don't know. Like, there's so much fog in all of this. Nothing is clear.
Well, that's what happens when, it's not like things are being, it's not like they have cameras inside the locker room. And, it's also in a situation where it's just a lot of people like testifying or talking about each other, or you just get hearsay basically.
Right.
Everyone's kind of telling it the way they want to tell it.
Ironically, there actually was one camera in the locker room, which we're gonna get to that because that's kinda what ends up blowing the case wide open. But continuing on the timeline, so after that, the Saints go on, they win the Super Bowl. There's no mention of a bounty on Peyton Manning, which is interesting, but so he somehow doesn't, at least nothing the NFL could find on it. In 2010, after that season, there apparently, I think people were sending film and they were like, "Something's up here." And if you watch the video, it is concerning. Like, it does seem like there was intentional, like trying to injure, but there's no again, this is all alleged and there's no evidence. There was no proof that that was ever, said that besides for the highly disputed quote from Jonathan Vilma, like there's no proof that they were actually trying to injure these people. And then like Favre comes out and is like, no, they weren't trying to hurt me. Who knows? Anyways, NFL, they come in, they can't find any.
So, just a question at this point: what makes NFL open the investigation?
I it was because of those two games, the Brett Favre game and the Kurt Warner game. And I think there was just obviously there were a lot of fines on it. And I think the other teams were like, they're trying to injure us intentionally. Look at this film, look at this tape.
So it was more like the NFL was really looking into them, like just because they're doing some dirty hits, they didn't have any idea that it was, deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, it's a small world. I'm sure there's rumblings and there's this and there's that. At that time, though, they couldn't find anything, and all the coaches just lied. Like Gregg Williams admits later that he just lied to them, and apparently he told, like they told Anthony Hargrove to just lie to because I guess he had one of the big hits, or maybe that sideline tape, whatever. Everyone just lies. They sweep it under the rug. No one finds out about it. But this is what's crazy to me. Why did they keep doing it? Like, you were that close to getting caught in 2009. Why'd you keep the program up? And that's where it's all getting so confusing. Like, is it just that everyone was doing it and they were the most egregious and got caught? Like, why why continue the program after that? Like,
Well, I'll
the
tell you
NFL is
why.
looking into it.
Couple of things. One is that they won.
Right, you just won the Super Bowl.
And two is that they lied and got away with it. So they kind of probably started to feel like they're a little invincible.
I guess. I mean, it's so like, they're looking into it. I don't know. Whatever. 2011, Aaron Rodgers email. This is a really funky one. Before the Saints Packers opener, apparently, allegedly, Sean Payton received an email from a close associate who ends up being this guy, Ornstein, who they call Orny, saying, "Put me down for $5,000 on Rodgers." And apparently, Sean Payton said, "Oh, this is referring to a bounty on Aaron Rodgers." So you're like, okay, that's it. Obviously, there was bounties going on. But then Ornstein, the guy who sent the email, was like, no, it was just a joke. And basically, argument against it being like an actual bounty on Rodgers. First of all, it was probably a joke because apparently this guy was in federal prison at the time, the guy sending the email. So the the Saints argument is just like, no, he was just joking because everyone knew that you were investigating us and he was just cracking a joke. I don't like these things again. It's so hard to know any of these things exactly what they are and what the truth is because obviously no one wants to admit it.
Right.
Um, that's really it. Like from then until the March of 2012, so they reinvestigate, and then that it goes public. Like they open the investigation back up and they go public with it. And the NFL they publicly announced that between 22 and 27 Saints defensive players maintained a pay for performance program with bounty payments administered by Gregg Williams during 2009 to 2011. The league said the system violated rules and included $1,500 for knockout and $1,000 for card off payments. So
By the way, it's not enough.
I know that's what's crazy too. Is like, but again, so what is that pointing to? That it's such so little money. Like, are other teams doing this? Is it like it's weird. It's so weird. I
So
don't like.
I'll tell you, my original thought is just that, like the saying, like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So this started as, we're going to give money for stats, for sacks, for, good plays, for interceptions. And then it crossed the line and it just kind of snowballed and got worse and worse. I don't think like this was an intentional, like I don't think Gregg Williams came into the Saints thinking like I'm gonna turn them around by just paying guys to be dirty and to hit people. And that's I think why they also justified it is like, no, we're just paying for stats. And then they added that in at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. But the truth is, like, Greg Williams seems like a pretty nasty guy. Apparently, he was stealing playbooks, but again, that's like, oh, is everyone stealing playbooks, or was it just him? And there's like a million like layers to this, and it's so hard to peel them all back and figure out what was actually going on. So this was an interesting and curious to your thoughts on this. A month after the NFL goes public with this scandal and they announce the punishments for everyone, or I don't know if they had announced for the players yet. Oh no, they hadn't announced for the players, but they had announced for the Saints organization. In April, this guy had been doing like a documentary on the Saints, and he was in the locker room and he basically had this audio he had this audio of Gregg Williams giving this crazy pump up speech before a Saints 49ers game, talking about, you know, killing people's heads and Crabtree's ACL, and Frank Gore and Kyle Williams, Vernon Davis's ankles. So here's some quotes for that. Kill the head and the body will die. We've got to do everything in the world to make sure we kill Frank Gore's head. We want him running sideways. We want his head sideways. That little receiver, number 10, referring to Kyle Williams, about his concussion. We need to bleep put a lick on him right now. Crabtree becomes human when we take out that outside ACL. So he's talking like Gregg Williams. This is recorded. You can listen to it. It's
I've heard
disgusting.
this recording. Once you started saying it, I remembered it. Like these are very recognizable words because of how crazy it is. And this is like really all the proof I need. I mean, he's not talking about like, oh, we got to hit this guy. It's hit his outside left ACL and he's weak in the ankle. Like he's giving specifics, which means like it's dirty. That's what it is. It's just dirty.
Yeah. And like, but this is what's mind boggling to me. He's doing it and it's disgusting. Does he have any trouble getting a job after his suspension?
That's
No.
it's so funny you say that because that was something I was about to say too. The craziest thing is this guy gets banned indefinitely. A year later, the ban is removed, and then he gets multiple more jobs.
It's insane, which but that's why part of me is like, is this just the way they talk in NFL locker rooms? Is that like is he doing something out of the ordinary or he just got caught? Because why would another team be like, "Oh, this guy who got busted, and said these insane things and was talking about Frank Gore's head being sideways and, destroying people's ACLs and giving people's concussions and destroying Vernon Davis's ankles. Like that guy, they're like, oh yeah, he seems like a great candidate. We'll hire him to be. He didn't even take a step back. He got more
So
defensive coordinator jobs. He was in the NFL like, and he was with, when was he with the Jets? 2018, 2020? Like,
right, I think you're definitely it's a good question. I think there's 2 possible options. One is that this was something that was going on league wide, the way he spoke and just those kind of things, so other people and other teams didn't really care about it that much. Or the NFL is just a win league and they don't care about what he did. They're like, this guy won a Super Bowl. We want to win. We're like, we want a guy who can turn a defense around and we don't care about his past. Those are the 2 options. It's a little bit like I wonder, like, the MLB with like sign stealing. You remember when that happened?
yeah.
And it was like some people were like, oh, everyone steals signs. It's just like them getting caught. And then other people are like, no, they don't do it like that. So it is interesting. And I wonder, like, it could be people talk like that, but it sounds like to me, it's awful the way he sounded. I know that would obviously never fly in today's day and age, but it could be that's just how wild the NFL is that, a GM doesn't care what this guy did wrong as long as he can help me turn my defense around. I mean, you see how many times guys get arrested and then the NFL will still take him back. So,
Right. But like when you get arrested, that's something outside of the game, like it, maybe it's impacting the locker room, maybe it's not, like I'm sure a lot of these guys who do heinous, disgusting things and, get arrested for it or accused of things and then charges are dropped for mysteriously. But a lot of those people, like, are considered good at like, as far as we know from media and from perception or other players are considered good in the locker room and positive assets to their team. Now, yeah, they're doing terrible things outside of the team, but this is in your job, like part of his job, and he got suspended for a year for it, and it's like terrible, terrible things you would think. And the irony is that it was downhill after this. He wasn't good. 2009, he won the Super Bowl. They regress after that. They get worse every single year. The defense continues to get worse. And he was bouncing around as a defensive coordinator. Not he wasn't good at it. Like, were the Jets good when he was defensive coordinator? Now he's finally everyone's like, all right, he's bad. But it's it's mind-boggling how long mediocre coaches are able to stay in the NFL, like for whatever reason. And even more mind-boggling that he wasn't a great coach and he had all this other stuff going on. Like, it's not like Sean Payton makes sense. He was an elite, elite coach, and we continue to see that. But you think like Gregg Williams was such a great coach? I don't know. Like, I don't really get it.
I mean, it's funny because when he was the Jets defensive coordinator, they were god awful and they were trying to tank. It was 2020. They were trying to tank and they were, I think at the time, maybe 0 and 10 or 0 and 12, 0 and 11. And they were up late in a game with like a few seconds left. And he went all out blitz and they gave up like a touchdown, like a bomb touchdown. And he got fired immediately after. But Jets fans were kind of happy because that helped them. They were trying to tank for, I think at the time it was Trevor Lawrence. And he helped them by going all out blitz on a like third down with like 20 seconds left. So he obviously wasn't a good coach. I wonder if the paying the people money is the reason why like they were successful that year, or they just happen to have a really good like, lock like a good group of guys on defense. Like I wonder like did it work or just happens to be they won? Something just an interesting thought I had. Like I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it helped. Like he set like a whole culture there, and Peyton brought him in to do that. Like I think Sean Payton was like, I don't really do defense. Like I want someone who's gonna completely take over. Now apparently he went rogue towards the end and it didn't end up like lasting his success, but I think it was the perfect storm. I think he did bring nasty, and I think he had some good vets, and I think it was just like a really good defensive unit that he had. But whatever. Okay, let's uh let's continue. So in May of 2012, they announced the player suspension, which we talked about earlier. It goes to appeal, and to handle the appeal, they have ex-commissioner, the commissioner from before Goodell, Paul Tagliabue. He decides to vacate all of the player suspension. So no players actually end up getting suspended. Do you have any guesses as to why?
Um, I would guess there wasn't enough evidence.
No, not no, actually. So there are I have four reasons here. Number one is the NFL came out and they said 22 to 27 defensive players on the Saints were involved. So why'd you only suspend four? So that's his first point. Is like you can't just suspend four. That's stupid. Like that doesn't make any sense. Now NFL said they were the leaders and they were the they were promoting it more than everyone else. Sure, but that's a little bit not a great look. Two is they push it. He pushed it onto the coaches. Oh, it was Gregg Williams' fault. The coaches created the environment. He was running it. Three was he felt like it wasn't compared to there had been other pay for play pools in Green Bay and New England, and they were only fined $25,000 for them, although they weren't trying to intentionally injure people. So I don't know how should have approved that is. And the fourth one is he felt like they were being disciplined for pregame talk and not for not for on the field conduct. So on the field, they never got suspended. Yeah, there was some fines, but there weren't any suspensions, and the NFL never like brought forward punishment for that. So he felt like, I guess this kind of goes to what you were saying. There wasn't enough proof because of that. Uh, They didn't have enough off the field proof that they were intentionally doing things on the field. I don't know. It's a little crazy to me that they all nothing. And the craziest part is that Tagliabue admits he's like, yes, Bountygate happened, and yes, these players were involved. Besides for one, not Fujita. Fujita he said wasn't involved, but yes, the other three players who were suspended were involved, and I don't care because you messed other things up. They're all getting off the hook. They're not going to be suspended.
I mean, let's get real. The real reason they did this is because it's the NFL and they just want this story to be over with. So if they're suspending people, then people are still talking about it. So they'd rather not punish people and just get this story out of the,
You would think,
mainstream.
except what story is haunting the NFL right now?
You tell me, what story?
Concussions. This is like the prime of there being, and this might be a later, later one of these kinds of episodes where we talk about the whole concussion cover up that the NFL put on for years and years and years. The NFL now has finally admitted that concussions are real and that they haven't, that the NFL and football is causing concussions about a year after this, they're in the middle at this point right now, they're in the middle of this massive class action lawsuit that they end up settling for $765 million. And they part of the NFL's, I mean, you have to mention it. Part of what the NFL is trying to do with Bountygate is say, look at us. We care so much about player safety. We're coming down hard on the Saints. We're coming down hard on the players who were involved in this because player safety is a big priority for us. They're trying to, turn that around a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because that is a good point. Like they want to show that they're all about player safety. At the same time, they were probably in the middle of a PR crisis and they're like extending this and having guys suspended and people talking about this for another 6 months will not help the NFL.
Well, you'd rather have them talking about this than talking about concussions,
I guess that's
right?
true.
Because this is like, oh, this is the NFL doing something good. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. The
Yeah,
concussions
but
is
But the
cover up.
story isn't the NFL doing something good. It's a story. The story that keeps being told is guys in the NFL were doing dirty things and trying to hurt each other.
Correct, but the narrative that the NFL is trying to control here is that it was, it was just the Saints and it was a few bad apples that were really pushing this, and it's not a league-wide problem. It's just the Saints, so we're just coming down hard on the Saints, and no one else is going to do this ever again.
Right. I hear.
It's interesting. It's interesting. There's a couple other things that, worth noting, I guess. They say they only got paid if they won the games, but there was a whole process here. Like Gregg Williams had a whole thing. They reviewed game film and they award cash afterwards at the defensive meetings. Like this was a real program that he put in to place. This wasn't like it wasn't chill.
And and
Um,
and all the money was coming from players putting money in the pot for making mistakes?
Correct. And I
Mm.
think sometimes players would just, like Vilma, just allegedly Vilma, who is just like, 10,000 if you knock out far.
So I think that's a big thing. It's like the money wasn't coming from the organization.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, like, as you go up, like the NFL says that the organization is not responsible at all, and that like the ownership didn't really know. Now, again, who is Goodell serves the owners, so is it in his best interest to throw owners under the bus? No. They like even Payton. It's not Sean Payton. It's not so clear how involved he was. It's interesting. The NFLPA, they're like nothing happened. That's their take. He says to Morris Smith, he's like, I reviewed 50,000 pages of evidence and 20 hours of testimony, and there was no bounty put on players by Saints players and no evidence that bounties existed. The investigation was sloppy and outcome focused.
Wow.
Basically, he's saying there's no proof that they were placing bounties for illegal hits. I think and he's just not saying it, but that's what he means is, oh, maybe your legal hits. I don't know. He probably would say nothing happened to this day. Like, we talked about Gregg Williams, what he ends up doing. Sean Payton also, his career is basically unscathed. Like he goes, he coaches high school football for that year where he's off. The guy's made tens of millions, if not, if he hasn't, he might have broken $100 million in his NFL coaching career. He's with the Broncos now. He was with the Saints for many years after that. He had no trouble getting a job. Gregg Williams, as we talked about, had no trouble getting a job. These players, besides Hargrove, but like the good players were fine. Like they got paid. They continued to sign contracts. It's interesting to me based on how everyone else reacted to it. Like to me, as a casual fan, if I knew nothing about and no research, there was a team allegedly that was trying to knock out the biggest stars in the game. Brett Favre, Cam Newton allegedly, Aaron Rodgers allegedly, Kurt Warner, like the quarterbacks, the best, most popular players in the league. They were trying to injure them and ruin their seasons, careers. And I don't know, is the punishment a lot when you look at it that way?
So you make a great point, and I think the biggest thing that is hitting me is that there was no face of the opposition. There's no player that like got injured by the Saints and was like calling for their heads. Like, and because of that, like even right, you're saying Brett Favre is like, no, they weren't trying to hurt me. Like, because there's no victim to like be like, hey, this they ruined my career or they hurt me. Like, because there's no player to like put the face behind it, they kind of got away with it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it sucked for Peyton, it sucked for Gregg Williams for the year. I mean, did it really impact their career trajectory? No. The Saints, yeah, they paid $500,000. They lost a couple second round draft picks. But one of the second round draft picks, I think they didn't lose a second. They lost the fourth in the end because good behavior or whatever. I don't know. But it's interesting, right? Like, tr- I'm torn a little bit on like, did they get punished enough? Did they not get punished at all? I guess part of it is the evidence. It's so hard to collect evidence on these things, right? Like you would think it would be black and white. No player will admit. They'll say like, oh, like no player I think will even admit to the card offs or knockout part. They're like, no, it was just, yeah,
And
Wasn't
by
a
the way, you have to remember, like, it's the NFL doing an investigation. So, like, it's not the police. Like, it's not like they can get warrants and look at all your like, go through your house and stuff. Like, there's rules. So, even there, like, their investigation was probably hindered a little bit because it's not like they have total control. They're not the government.
I think they do have a decent amount of control, although I will say, I think they just hire I'm not when they say the NFL is investigating,
Well,
I
they
be
hire, like, an outside firm or
yeah, they hire a law firm.
but those firms don't have, like, subpoena power. They don't have, like
Well, they must have some power because there were, they had all this testimony from Gregg Williams and they had testimony from Sean Payton and they had emails like the Rogers email. And apparently
I
there was an
think I think everything that goes on, like, in the NFL, so in the building or on NFL servers they can look at, but I don't think they could go into, they can't go, like, into someone's house or, like, in
no,
private
no,
stuff.
no, of course not. But like Gregg Williams gave sworn testimony. I mean, I assume that would hold up in the court of law also.
Right, it's a good point.
It's
It's either way, your question is good about, like, did they get enough? My answer, it feels like they got nothing. It feels like they got away with it, like, they should have been blackballed from the league,
right.
and
You would think, but the league not reacting like that. For Sean Payton, I understand it a little more because winning is king and there's a lot of money to be made.
he
But
also was, who knows how much he knew.
yeah, I think Sean Payton, like at least the scene that they paint is that he knew it was happening and he didn't stop it. Was he involved in it per se? No. But did he allow it to continue? Yes. And did he didn't go to Greg Williams and tell him to shut it down. He didn't do any like I don't think he was really involved in it, but again, there's so many PR teams working this thing and trying to make it look better for people, and it's just a little bit remarkable to me that basically everyone I think, like, the guy who gets hurt the most is Hargrove. He's the player, he didn't even get suspended at all, but I think it was hard for him to, like, be on a team after that because he wasn't such an elite player. I don't know, it's just it's a little crazy, like, all these guys, their careers are completely unscathed. It leads me to believe that this can't be so rare in the NFL, like, this must be a thing that happens. I don't know, that's my take.
So, my take on it is I agree with you, except I don't know if it's that like, I think it's option 2, not that it's happening so much, but that the NFL just protects their own, like, they care way more about their image and about that than about, like, giving out punishment, like, it's way more important to them to just keep things buried and, just have it sweep it under the rug than to, like, get justice, you know?
Right, like, as long as nothing comes out, they're happy to just, "Yeah, sweep 'em under the rug." If no one's able to find out, no one's able to find out, great. And,
Right.
maybe that's what happened with, yeah, maybe that's what happened, maybe that's why they closed the investigation in the first place, I don't know. But
Like, it's like, that's why like, it's just about protecting their brand. So, like, for them, they're doing, like, a cost analysis, like, is it worth it to punish a guy like that? And now we have a whole massive story about it, even though they did punish people. But, like, for them, I think it's like, how can we punish people in a way that, like, the story is like, they did enough and now it's over? Like, that's all they care about.
right, right. Yeah, like, I was even thinking they don't want they hate when, like, media is covering these kinds of things, they don't want that coming out. They don't want people digging into these things that have already happened, that's a it's like, you would never want, like, we're obviously a very viral podcast, you never want something like this,
Yes.
hitting the hitting the media circuit and all of a sudden everyone's talking about it. They want these things to be forgotten and no one to talk about them ever again. So it makes sense if they have the opportunity to sweep things under the rug.
Yeah. It's pretty the word you use is right. It's pretty remarkable that when you look back and now, and it doesn't feel like anyone really got punished that much.
Yeah. I mean, like the punishments were big relative to other punishments, but they weren't punishments relative to their careers. Like these guys were all fine after it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You got anything else?
No, just one of those. It's just one of those stories and things that like kind of you forget about, and then when you like dig back into it, you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. And all right, we'll ask we'll ask the people how they feel about this style, and we'll be back to your regularly scheduled programming in 2 weeks with a NBA Trey episode. And the 25th episode will be this same style but NBA edition. Not sure what we're gonna do, but that's what it'll be. Thank you for listening to the Trade Rewind. You can find us on social media at the Trade Rewind on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. If you enjoy listening to the show, the best thing you can do for us is to leave us a 5-star on Spotify and share the episode.